Well, welcome back to the Local Business Grower Podcast. My name is Eric Cavallo. Are you looking for an independent politics podcast? Well, my guest today is Chris Novembrino, host of the Don't Worry About the Government podcast. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show today.
It's great to have a fellow podcaster here. I'm also a huge podcast fan, and I have way too many stacked up in my queue. When I'm looking for a podcast, I'm trying to find something unique and different, and there's definitely a lot of political shows on iTunes. What would make your show stand out or be different that someone would want to tune in and hear what you have to say?
Yeah, so I think what makes Don't Worry About the Government different from other news and politics shows is that a lot of news and politics shows, either formally or informally, are affiliated with one of the two major political parties. And one way or another, they are getting money from some of that financial orbit, right? Either on the Republican side or the Democratic side. Don't Worry About the Government is 100% independent. We are a listener-supported podcast. I get no money from any candidate ever. Insofar as I make donations to various candidates, I've made donations to Republican and Democratic candidates in small amounts. I'm not tied to anyone. So when you are getting the news from me, one, I've done 400 plus episodes of this. Two, I have a background in news and politics. I was actually involved in television news for many years. And three, I'm not tied to anyone. I am just speaking from the heart, the way I see the world.
Well, it's great to definitely have a fresh, unbiased opinion from either side. I always say there's three sides of a coin. There's the heads, there's the tails, and there's the side. So new perspectives are always appreciated. So I'm a little bit older and Generation X, and I kind of get the reference, but maybe you can explain to your listeners where the name of your podcast came from.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a punk rocker. So maybe if you're Gen X or a little bit older, you're familiar with the band The Talking Heads. The Talking Heads have this song called Don't Worry About the Government, which is about like city living and modern life and all of that stuff. And I just thought it was kind of a fun and cheeky way to pay a little bit of homage to my punk rock, post-punk roots, and also kind of speak to a little bit of my posture about news and politics. It's serious stuff, but at the same time, I do think that a lot of problems in the world come up when we live in paralyzing fear of our political system. So we're serving many different masters with this name. It's just meant to be a little bit light. I like the idea that you get the sense of politics, but you don't necessarily get a fist in the face when you read this title either.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of the Talking Heads, and if you haven't listened to them before, definitely go check them out. You know, things may change, but it's always same as it ever was. So besides the unique and kind of lighthearted feel of your podcast, what else is there that your listeners really seem to enjoy or love about your show?
So I think what my listeners like and what makes this show a little bit different, for one, I make all the music for the show. I'm a professional musician. So a lot of times you are listening to a podcast and it starts with like a canned piece of music. Not in this case, man. Right from the start, my thumbprint is right on this show. I record our version of Rick Derringer's I Am a Real American. You might remember that as Hulk Hogan's professional wrestling theme song. I've got my own version of that. My music that I make on a regular basis populates the show. So when you're listening to the show, you're also getting a little bit of a musical interlude, which people have said that they like. People appreciate that this show has a heavy usage of clips. So when I'm talking about stuff, I'm also able to kind of take you back 8-9 months. Here's this clip from 3 years ago with this person saying this thing, and you can juxtapose that to what we're hearing today. I like to think, at my best, I offer a bigger and broader context for the news of the week, and people seem to really appreciate that.
Well, that's really awesome. Yeah, definitely. People are looking for something new and different, and if you can add your own creativity and kind of plug in something that makes it who you are, I think that really stands out. Speaking of which, is there anything unique about your background or something about you that people might find fascinating, or something that kind of lends to you starting this podcast and having your own unique style?
I'm trying to think. A lot of it you could hear on the podcast, and we just talked about the musical component, although I don't necessarily think that's a grand secret. For a long time, I used to close caption news television. I used to do major news networks out in Los Angeles. I used to do Washington, D.C. I used to close caption C-SPAN. I don't want to name too many other major networks that I used to close caption. But for many, many years, I was deep into the news business. I was seeing how news copy was being written. I was editing news copy. I get how this stuff works on a granular level. And I guess I say this as something that people might not know about me because it's not something I'm like flashing on every single episode, because otherwise I think it would be a little bit preaching, a little bit didactic. But I do have some pride behind my resume and the fact that I have this background of working for various news companies all over the country.
Yeah, you definitely have a little bit of an inside knowledge or previous knowledge of how those networks and the news gets put out there. I always think about Noam Chomsky and manufacturing consent, but that's probably a different topic and a topic for your podcast at some point.
Absolutely. Although that's certainly an interesting subject right there of how you can see from city to city, station to station, a lot of the copy ends up the same. Or in some cases, I've seen how copy has been tweaked for Los Angeles, but left a certain way for, let's say, a station in Iowa or something. It's interesting. It really is.
Yeah, definitely a little bit different demographics in those two towns. So speaking of which, how can people reach out to you or get a hold of you and subscribe or learn more?
You can find me on Twitter at ChrisNovembrino. And the show is called Don't Worry About the Government. And you can find that on iTunes and Stitcher by searching for Don't Worry About the Government or by going to our homepage, don'tworry.tv. And for those of you who are so inclined to just go ahead and start supporting the show today, you can go to patreon.com/DWATG. When you sign up for $1 a show, that's all we're asking. You also get the entirety of my other show, the All in the Family podcast, which is a podcast that looks episodically at every episode of the classic 1970s television show, All in the Family. So go and check it out. I think it's a great deal.
Well, Chris, thanks for being on the show. It was great having you as a guest, and I'll be sure to put all those links in the show notes.
Thank you for having me.